Thanks for being with me today, April. And what I wanted to talk to you about was a dilemma that a lot of parents face, which is commuting. And how should you go about commuting with your child? I know some people leave their child close to home at daycare, and some bring their child with them and leave them close to work for daycare. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that dilemma and just hear what you did when your children were young.
For the first 12 years of my 20 years at the company, I commuted with my children. I lived about an hour away from where I work, and it became an issue in the fact that my husband was working in a different company, and so we were basically splitting the difference of where we worked and the commute involved with that. So for us, the best way to deal with the baby coming was to have the baby come with me to work, because there was going to be nobody near home because we were splitting the difference for our commute. And what I recommend, if you do not have what people call like a granny nanny or someone that is at your home with the baby, to usually bring the baby with you, because that way you can nurse when you drop them off, nurse when you can over lunchtime, and then nurse before you actually leave to go home.
Oh, okay.
Also, babies get sick in daycare, and so to be able to run over the daycare right near work and to pick them up and soothe them if they have a fever, or if they fell during daycare or something like that, in terms of or getting them to the hospital. I had one child fall when he was 1 year old and broke his chin open, and so I had to take him to the ER for stitches. And so if I would have had to drive an hour back to get that child who was bleeding versus having them call the emergency and have the child go to the hospital without either parent, because we were both an hour away. So there are all these different types of variables to determine what is best for your family. And again, you have to do what is best for your family.
Okay. So in that case where your kid had to go to the emergency room, it makes me think, how do you handle like doctor visits with the kids if you're taking them with you on your commute? Did you typically choose a doctor close to home, or did you choose a doctor close to work and daycare?
That's a great question. So what we did, and again, you need to figure out what's best for your family, but we actually chose a pediatrician near home, because usually kids get sick after hours and on the weekends. And so if you need to go take the baby or the child to the doctor, for instance, if they get sick at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday, you'll be taking them at 8 a.m. on the Wednesday morning to get checked out either for ear infection or throat infection, etc. So you don't want to be driving an hour to your workplace if you have a sick child that was cranky, and that's problematic in the car. So we chose that setup. But for other kind of annual or 6 months to 12 months visit doctors, such as dentists or optometrists, we actually had those close to our workplace, with the child being in the daycare near the workplace, so that we could pop out of work, pick up the kid, go to the appointment, drop the kid off, and then go back to work. So instead of taking a full day off to drive back and forth for those appointments, it only takes about an hour and a half versus the 4 hours it might if we had to go back home to do those kind of one-off appointments.
I see. When your child got hurt at daycare while you were at work and he had to go to the ER, what difficulties did that create that you had to deal with as the mom?
So that was a learning experience, as most parents would say. Parenting is an evolution, as you learn along the way. So one child slipped, broke his chin open, needed stitches. Another child broke his arm significantly. We had to go to the ER. And what I found out is the hospital near my work, which is where the kids went to daycare and school, they were on a different system than the pediatrician's hospital at home was. So lesson learned there is to make sure you get printed copies of any orders and or CDs, because they can actually put information from the ER doctors on a CD, whether that be text information or x-rays or MRIs. And so then you go with those hard copies, including x-rays, to the pediatrician the next day or later that afternoon, depending on the timing, to make sure that that information goes into the system where your pediatrician is located, and or the people who are going to perform surgery on your child, because my one child broke his arm and we had to have surgery the next day. So thankfully, that all worked because otherwise they would not have known how to get that information other than the information from the mother, me, communicating with the doctors in 2 cities.
Okay, so lots to think about, it sounds like, when you're commuting with your kids. So we're actually going to do a part 2 about this topic because it is very involved. So thanks, April, for getting us started, and I look forward to hearing your additional tips about commuting with kids.
Thank you.